You know, if someone had told me that the future of artificial intelligence could turn on a single mop-wielding woman stepping into a room at just the right moment, I'd have laughed them out the door, but life, as I learned, doesn't care much for our expectations. That's how Mercer Tech, a behemoth in American technology with $500 million hanging by a thread, almost lost everything, and how Rachel Brooks, a black single mom in a faded janitor uniform, changed the game for good. The best part? She never even intended to. Yeah, that happened. So there we were, or rather, there they were, the top 20 AI experts in the country, burning through millions in emergency contracts, locked in a sterile conference room that smelled of cold coffee and even colder ambition. Simon Walker, Mercer Tech CEO, stood off to the side, his gaze sharp enough to cut glass, silently watching the numbers on the digital board flicker and spiral into chaos. It was a kind of pressure that makes seasoned engineers sweat through their silk shirts and question every life choice. For months, Simon had thrown everything at the company's flagship project, Vanguard, the supposed revolution in AI, but a single unsolved glitch had turned hope into a noose. Simon's voice, low and ice-cold, finally broke the silence. 3 days. That's all you have. Miss this contract, and not one of you will land even a janitorial job, let alone another engineering gig. He left them in a silence that felt like a coffin closing. Out in the hallway, unnoticed, Rachel Brooks pushed her mop cart past the glass walls, lost in thought, eyes tired but always curious. She wasn't supposed to be anywhere near the drama. She was there to keep the building spotless, to pick up Sophia, her little girl, after a shift, and to quietly disappear at sunrise. Nobody at Mercer Tech cared about the janitor, especially not Jason Hartley, the AI team lead, all-expensive watch and inherited arrogance. The only thing Jason ever noticed about Rachel was when she accidentally splashed mop water near his shoes, and his snide, "Watch it," had become as routine as the late-night vending machine hum. But here's the thing, Rachel used to be someone. Years ago, she was an MIT prodigy in AI, until life knocked her sideways. Her fiancé gone in a flash, a baby to raise alone, and dreams put on hold for survival. Most nights, as she wiped down empty offices, Rachel let herself remember what it felt like to belong among bright minds and big ideas. She never planned to step into the fight until she saw, in one quick glance, a tiny error on the conference room whiteboard. Something every expert missed. She told herself to walk away, to let sleeping dogs lie, but that itch, that old hunger to solve problems nobody else could see, wouldn't let her go. So at 3 a.m, when the building was empty and her doubts the loudest, Rachel stood in the conference room, staring at the tangle of equations on the board. She found the flaw, bold as daylight. They treated a parameter as linear when it needed a nonlinear function. She hesitated. Janitors don't grab red markers and fix million-dollar mistakes, but in that moment, Rachel did. She wiped the board, rewrote the key equation with the confidence of her old MIT self, and slipped out before dawn. She had no idea Simon Walker, ever the hawk, had witnessed everything from the shadows. What happened next set off a storm. Simon ran the numbers on Rachel's new formula, and the system's performance soared nearly 60%. For the first time in months, hope flickered. But Simon wasn't just pleased, he was unsettled. Who was this woman? Why had she hidden her talent? And in a company obsessed with credentials and control, could he trust her? Meanwhile, the rumor mill at Mercer Tech went into overdrive. The next morning, Simon called a meeting and, in front of every engineer, announced the janitor had solved what none of them could. Jason Hartley, humiliated and desperate, scoffed, "Are we really letting someone with no credentials dictate our future?" Rachel, calm but razor-sharp, met Jason's stare. "I studied AI at MIT. Sometimes the simplest fix is the right one, you just have to see it." Her analogy about fixing a clogged sink cut through the room's tension. Most folks started seeing her in a whole new light, even as Jason burned with resentment. Simon backed Rachel, making her walk the team through her solution, turning the tables on the company's old guard. In that moment, Rachel went from invisible to invaluable, and made herself a target for every threatened ego in the room. You know what I mean? Power isn't just about who's right, it's about who gets to speak, who gets to be heard. Over the next week, Jason's campaign to freeze Rachel out was relentless. Colleagues went cold, questions went unanswered, and every little mistake was magnified. Rachel, who had fought so hard to get this far, started to wonder if she'd made a terrible mistake stepping into the light. One night, exhausted and alone in the staff kitchen, Jason cornered her. "You don't belong here. If you know what's good for you, you'll quit." Rachel, too tired to fight, wrote her resignation letter the next day. When Simon found out, the project collapsed back into chaos. He realized, too late, what Mercer Tech had really lost: not just technical genius, but the rare courage to challenge convention. Simon did something he'd never done before he left his tower office and drove to Rachel's rundown apartment, where he pleaded for her to return. Rachel resisted, scared for her own dignity and her daughter's future, but Sophia, wise beyond her years, reminded her, "We never give up, Mom." With Simon's promise of support, Rachel agreed to come back, on one condition: things would change for good. At the next big investment conference, Rachel took the stage, not as an expert, but as herself a janitor, a mother, and a woman who saved Mercer Tech. She explained her solution in plain language, comparing the AI's flaw to a clogged river. Investors, skeptical at first, began to nod in understanding. Jason, desperate, tried one last time to discredit her, demanding she guarantee her fix in front of everyone. Rachel didn't flinch. "The real risk isn't my solution failing, but you're refusing to see what's right in front of you." The hall erupted in applause. Jason, utterly defeated, could only watch as Simon promoted Rachel to senior creative advisor, a move that made Rachel a symbol of what Mercer Tech could be at its best. Yet, behind the scenes, Jason's resentment festered, and Rachel knew the hardest battles weren't over. But for now, as she went home that night, finding Simon and Sophia playing together, laughter filling her tiny living room, she allowed herself to hope. Simon, breaking through his old shell, finally confessed his feelings, proposing they become a family in every sense. Rachel, who had faced down prejudice, heartbreak, and every obstacle thrown her way, finally said yes, her heart full for the first time in years. Not far away, Jason sat alone, lost in bitterness, a reminder that some people let hatred define them, but for Rachel, Simon, and Sophia, the future stretched bright and full of promise. So what do you think? Would you have the courage to stand up to bias the way Rachel did? If this story moved you, hit like, share your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next story about everyday courage and the fight for what's right.